Today, I invite you to journey back to the ancient world and explore one of its most fascinating spiritual syntheses, the cult of Serapis. A god born in the intellectual and spiritual melting pot of Ptolemaic Egypt, fusing Greek, Egyptian, and later Roman religious elements. But Serapis is not merely a relic of antiquity. He holds striking relevance for modern seekers who find themselves navigating multiple traditions, cultures, even identities. Serapis is a deity of contradictions and connections. He is a god of the underworld and of healing, of grain and intellect, of dreams and reason. His cult demonstrates how religion adapts and evolves to unite people across difference. Serapis emerged under the rule of Ptolemy I Soter, general of Alexander the Great and the founder of the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt. Ptolemy sought to unite his Greek and Egyptian subjects under a single religious figure. The solution? A new deity that could bridge both cultures. A new deity born of the encounter between two cultures. A new deity that expressed the yearnings and spiritual needs of the peoples who emerged from the blending of these two cultures. Serapis was a composite god, combining aspects of the ancient god Auset or Osiris, lord of the underworld and rebirth, the ancient bull god Apis, a fertility symbol, and Hellenistic deities, including Zeus, Asclepius, and the even more ancient, mysterious, and taboo-crossing deity, Dionysus. The historian Plutarch records that Ptolemy consulted the oracle at Sinope, notably an oracle Alexander the Great himself had consulted, and was advised to bring a statue of a god identified as Pluton or Hades from there to Egypt. That statue became the central icon of Serapis. Serapis had the flowing beard and majestic demeanor of Zeus, but he also wore a modius, a grain measure, on his head, symbolizing abundance and connection to the underworld, and further underpinning his connection to Auset or Osiris. As Plutarch said in De Iside et Osiride, Serapis was devised as a god to unite all peoples, a synthesis of heaven and the grave, of healing and death. The Serapeum in Alexandria, built under Ptolemy III, became one of the grandest temples in the ancient world. It was a cultural hub that housed not only worship, but also philosophical study and healing rituals. Worship of Serapis spread rapidly throughout the Hellenistic and later Roman worlds, from Egypt to Greece, Rome, France, Spain, and even the cold and windy north of the empire in what is now Britain. His cult offered healing, much as the cult of Asclepius did, using the same methods, an afterlife assurance of salvation and continuity after death, as the cult of Auset or of Osiris, and philosophical depth that aligned it with a blend of Stoic and Platonic ideas. pilgrims visited the Serapeum for dream incubation and sacred sleep. One account from a Greek visitor describes, "I lay down in the sacred halls of Serapis, and he appeared in my dreams, touching my body with light. In the morning I awoke cured." And this was found in the inscription from the Serapeum of Carthage in modern-day Tunisia. Serapis was depicted seated on a throne, holding a scepter, with Cerberus, the three-headed dog of Hades or Hades, at his feet, reinforcing his underworld connections. Though few direct hymns survive the long suppression under the Christian and Byzantine authorities, and eventually the violent suppression of the surviving elements of the cult under the great Arab expansion, some ancient texts that have survived to our day do preserve invocations and praises to Serapis. One fragment from a Greek hymn says, "Hail Serapis, great among gods, ruler of land and sea, healer of mankind, sender of dreams, guardian of souls. In your temple the sick are restored, the lost are found. Serapis, son of Osiris, light of the underworld, we call to you in need and in awe." Another hymn, preserved in the Greek magical papyri, reads, "I am Serapis, who sends forth the holy breath, the breath of fire, of life, of divine wisdom. I am he who brings dreams. I am he who awakens. Come to me, you who seek the way beyond death." These hymns blend praise with mystical power, showing Serapis as a healer, a gatekeeper, and a spiritual guide. But Serapis wasn't just a popular deity. He was also deeply philosophical. In Neoplatonic thought, especially in late antiquity, Serapis was seen as a cosmic mediator, a divine intelligence organizing the world's soul. As Iamblichus said in his On the Mysteries, Serapis is the logos that binds together all the elements. He is the harmony of opposites, the unity of being. The notion of Serapis as the logos or divine reason resonates as much with modern mystical and Gnostic ideas of universal force and balancing dualities as it did to the late Neoplatonic philosophy, which was to gain its great flowering in Plotinus's Ennead, his 9-volume treatise on the one and the many. Serapis is a deity that fits in very closely with this. The cult of Serapis reached its height during the Golden Age of the Roman Empire. However, as Christianity spread and gained power, Serapis became one of its major rivals. The destruction of the Serapeum of Alexandria in 391 CE under the orders of the Emperor Theodosius marked a symbolic end. Christian writers like Tertullian and Augustine denounced Serapis as a pagan idol, yet paradoxically some of Serapis' roles, such as divine healer, savior, and mediator, were absorbed into early Christian theology, as were some of the forms of their worship. Even after his temples were dismantled, brutally destroyed, Serapis' symbolic legacy endured. His image, bearded, wise, and enthroned, echoed in later depictions of Christ, especially Christ Theotokos, and his philosophical depth left an imprint on mystical traditions that continue to our day. And so, how does he speak to us? What does Serapis offer to us today? We live in an era where people are blending traditions, combining Buddhism and Hindu Dharma with tarot or astrology, with a Christian mysticism. Serapis stands as an ancient archetype of spiritual integration. As a modern Hermetic commentary says, in Serapis, the seeker finds permission to be whole, to draw from many sources without shame or contradiction. This is not some New Age pastiche, but is a thread of human spirituality with a noble and great tradition and a spiritual power that we are capable of accessing, that unites, does not dissect. Serapis held within him death and healing, Egyptian and Greek and Roman, body and soul. For modern mystics working with shadow integration, Jungian psychology or alchemy, Serapis is an ideal symbolic ally. He teaches that true transformation happens in the reconciliation of opposites. In shadow work and inner alchemy, Serapis becomes a guide through the darkness towards healing. And in this, he is very much similar to the Gnostic deity Abrasax, or you might know him as Abraxas. The practice of incubation, seeking healing or wisdom through dreams, is enjoying a timely and well-earned resurgence in spiritual circles. Serapis temples were ancient centers of dream work. Today, practitioners may invoke Serapis in meditation or sleep rituals for guidance. Serapis, guardian of dreams, bring me the light that heals through the darkness, is one such modern invocation. This revival mirrors the ancient belief that dreams are messages from the divine, a belief embraced by Jung and modern dreamworkers alike. And it reflects a Western tradition that is similar to the dream yogas of Naropa and of the Bon tradition in Tibet, more than likely drawing from the same wellspring. For those engaged in a more intellectual mysticism, Serapis is a model of divine intelligence. He's a bridge between logos and mythos, between reason and mystery. His image reminds us that spirituality doesn't need to reject reason, and that the sacred can be beautifully rational. This makes Serapis especially appealing in a modern world where many seek meaning without abandoning intellect. Serapis was born of necessity, a political religious synthesis designed to hold together a diverse empire. But he evolved into something more, a cosmic symbol of unity, transformation, and the human longing to connect the visible and invisible. He challenges, much as Abraxas or Abrasax does, the idea of what a god is, to move beyond just a divinity to becoming a sacred software. He is a god of paradoxes, living and dead, old and new, rational and mystical. In him we see the eternal human desire to reconcile the many into the one. And we are reminded in the consecration ritual of Helios in the Greek magical papyrus, where there is this stunning hymn that resembles the journey through the Duat, very much like a condensation of the Middle Kingdom book of the Amduat. There is suddenly this line at the very end of it which says, "The true Zeus is Serapis." In an age where people are increasingly turning away from rigid dogmas, the image of Serapis, God who is many yet one, resonates powerfully. Whether in dreamwork, philosophical contemplation, or symbolic ritual, Serapis remains an ancient key for modern seekers. And I will leave you with a contemporary hymn to Serapis. I am Serapis, the deep root, the skyward flame, the silence of the tomb, and the whisper in the dream. May you find inspiration in both your philosophical yearnings and your dreams, and in that may the sacred breath of Serapis guide you onward to knowledge, to gnosis, and to salvation after the journey through the underworld into the mysteries of the next life. I am Dr. Shimon de Valencia, but more importantly, I, as you are, am a merry mystic. May you find inspiration and light in your journey.